Someone you love is in pain. Someone you care about is struggling. You can see it, it's plain as day. But how do you address the fact that they are struggling and that you are concerned for their mental health? We're going to chat about that and a lot more today on Shattered the podcast. Let's do it.
Welcome to Shattered the podcast.
Sharing the lived experience of mental illness on
A father,
A mother.
A family.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
it's one of the most difficult things that a friend can do for another friend, a loved one, somebody close to them, is to engage with them when you know that they're struggling with their mental health. Attitudes are changing, and I'll be the first to admit that. I go into schools now to talk about living with mental illness. Without exception, the kids are engaged, they are aware of the issues, and there's none of the stigma that I had when I was a kid. I'm gave an example at school the other day, at a school where when I was a kid, and I remember a couple of times where I was being bullied by much bigger kids than me, and I would fight back. Now, these kids were picking on me, they were bullying me, they were attempting to diminish me because of what they perceived to be things that made me different. Um, can't really explain what it was. Um, we didn't grow up wealthy, but we grew up happy, which I don't know, used to make some people angry. Anyways, one particular instance, a big kid, I was in grade 3, he was in grade 6, he was picking on me. We got into a fisticuff fight. I'm pretty sure I held my own, even though he was much bigger than me. That might be just my masculine hope, saying that, oh, yeah, I held my own. Probably beat the tar out of me. I don't know. I can't remember. What I do remember is a teacher coming over, breaking up the argument, asking us what had happened, and sent us both to the principal. Well, we went to the principal, all right, and my bully got the cuts, which is, it's the cane. He got the cane across his hand. The problem is I got the cane as well. So there was no recognition of somebody being bullied or diminished in somebody else's eyes. Everybody was treated the same. Now, why I use that uh, example is because many people I know as kids that were bullied because of their mental health got the same treatment. Whenever they stood up for themselves, whenever they tried to take back their power, they were quite literally punished for it. They'd get the cuts, the cane, whatever you want to call it. There is a story that goes with that one. Okay, I'll tell it. So we're getting the cuts, and the bully was getting the cane, and he kept moving his hand. So the tip of the cane was catching him right on the edge of his hand. Now, the thing was, you used to get 6 of the best uh, on your hand in this particular school. Other schools, you got 6 on your backside. Um, with a strap or a paddle or a cane or something. This one was a cane to the hand. And because this kid kept moving his hand, he got 10 times more. He got like 15 cuts that just kept catching him, and he kept crying and moving his hand. And me, I just took my 6. It was, I was a rough and tumble kid. If I was getting the cuts, I'd just take it, I'd just deal with it. Why that's funny is that the guy never bullied me again because I watched him cry getting cuts, and then I got the cuts and didn't cry. I don't know why that's pertinent, but it's It's a weird memory that I carry. Very, very, real in my head. It's not a memory that's clouded at all. It's very, very clear. I don't really remember his face, but I remember the cuts. I remember the principle. And I think about the fact that a lot of the people that I speak with at schools grew up with mental illness. And if that was the response that they got for trying to stand up for themselves, trying to uh, get back some of their powers, no wonder they struggled. No wonder it was hard for them. Back to the point. Today, though, that would hardly ever happen, I hope. In fact, I know that it still does. Uh, I'm reticent to talk about my kids' experience, but I know that one of my kids was bullied by other girls, really, really nice kids that just seemed to turn on her and really destroyed her mental health for reasons that we can't even fathom today. But the hope is that if they had have realized that they were harming her mental health or somebody had spoken to them about that, perhaps the outcome would have been different. Perhaps. So it comes down to today, what do you do if somebody that you care about is looking like they're struggling? Now, the signs are fairly obvious. They withdraw, they start speaking fatalistically, they physically look different. You're just concerned. You're not thinking that they've got bipolar disorder or this they have schizophrenia or something like that. You're just worried. There's something going on in their head, and you know that it doesn't look great. If you saw somebody, you're playing a game and somebody started limping, you're going to stop the game and you're going to ask them what's going on. You're going to stop whatever you're doing and you're going to say, time out. I think somebody's hurt. At what point will it become okay for us to do that when we see somebody struggling with their mental illness and for it to be seen and received as being the positive thing that it is? The worst thing that a person with a mental illness can do is to shut down and withdraw. It's all they want to do, but it's the worst thing in the world for them. Why? Because they think that people are judging them. They might be judging themselves. So, what do you do? First and foremost, it's important to understand, and this is quite literally the first thing that you've got to decide in your mind is that friends can't fix friends. Can't be done. Even if you are a psychiatrist, psychologist, somebody you love, somebody you care about is struggling with their mental illness, you can give them tips, you can give them advice, but you won't be able to help them long term because you don't have the objectivity of a clinician who can step outside without emotion and look at a person's circumstance and be able to divine whether they are struggling and how they're struggling. What are the causes for that struggle? You can guess. You could be the most educated person in the world, but you are not going to be able to treat that person because you're too close. You don't have the objectivity or the authority to speak to them in a way that is going to be able to help them as much as you want to. So, if you're not a clinician, if you're not somebody that's versed in the mental illness arts, you've got no hope. You can't fix them, but that should not be your goal. Your goal, if you see somebody with a mental illness, should not be to say, how can I fix them? More, how can I help them? Number two, and these are even before you've actually said anything to a person, it is okay to be concerned about someone. In fact, it's probably the most incredible gift that you can give a person is to put that concern into action. A lot of us will look at somebody that's struggling with their mental illness and they'll shy away. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. Don't want to upset them. Don't want to make things worse. I don't want to trigger them. All valid concerns. But if you look at the statistics, the people that are seen and acknowledged as struggling, people that have somebody that spoke into their lives, are hugely more statistically able to be better, not get better, but be better. It's the silence that is the killer. It's the loneliness. It's the feeling destitute, it's feeling like there is no one that cares for you. My wife, and you can see this in marriage with mental illness, loves me more than I know or understand and has stuck with me through the most horrible times. But she's always struggled with that thought of how can she help me? How can she fix me? Sorry. How can she make things better? And she's come to the conclusion that she never can. She can't fix me. She can do things to try and make my life easier. We have learnt shorthand together that she can help me understand at different times that I am actually struggling. I'll be sitting there and she'll come up to me, put her hand on her shoulder and just go, "Are you okay?" And she can see that I've been sitting there struggling with a thought, with a concept, with a symptom of my mental illness. And she's able to intervene in a way that's appropriate and is going to be effective. So let me underscore that. It is okay to be concerned. There's no greater gift you can give to somebody than to be concerned, but then turn that concern into action. Okay. So you understand that you can't fix your friend. You've decided that it's okay that you're concerned. Now you need to find the best way to speak to them. The concerns that I mentioned earlier, the concern that you're going to trigger them, concern that you're going to make it worse, concern that you're going to harm them, are all valid and legitimate concerns. If I have a friend with a broken leg and the bone is clearly shattered, I know that I cannot help in that situation. What I can do is help to alleviate their pain. And that's going to be in different ways: calling an ambulance, getting help, immobilizing them, making sure that they don't move, ensuring that they're calm. These are all valid responses to somebody with a physical injury. Somebody that's struggling with their mental health, though, oh, what do you do? How do you do it? Am I supposed to call an ambulance? What am I supposed to do? It's about finding the best way to intervene. Maybe your best option is to call an ambulance, metaphorically, call somebody else in. First and foremost, you just need to you obviously know them enough to be concerned. You obviously are in their orbit and you know somewhat who they are, who they respect, who they talk to. You understand your relationship to them. Maybe you're a friend, maybe they're a family member. Being patient and understanding is the way to go. Now, there is a wonderful campaign called Are You OK Day? And if you're really struggling with how to talk to somebody, Are You Okay? The website has incredible discussion resources, how to talk to someone. They give examples, and I'm not doing that because the examples are too broad. I can't give you the be all and end all of how to approach somebody who you feel is struggling with mental illness. How do you talk to them? Can you just pull up beside them and say, "Mate, I'm worried about you"? Maybe it's going to somebody that they're close to and saying, "Hey, dude, I'm worried about such and such." And this is not to gossip or to make yourself big noted. It's to, if you're legitimately concerned, any and all tools in the toolbox are on the cards as far as I'm concerned. Any tools that obviously don't diminish the person that you're trying to help, embarrass them, or hurt them are legitimate tools. Maybe that is getting in allies. Maybe that is, um, and when I say that, I'm not talking about an intervention. Worst possible thing that you could do. We're all here, we're all worried about you, and we think you're mental. Nah, it's not going to work. But pulling up alongside them, speaking to somebody that they're close to, asking them to talk to them. My wife will often come to me and say, "I've got this friend and I've seen X, Y, and Z. What do you think?" Now, I don't jump into that situation because I have no relationship there. There's only one time in one of her relationships that I've ever jumped in, and that's because I was legitimately concerned for the person's safety. And I asked their permission to talk to them. I asked my wife if I could talk to them on the phone, and I had to hear from them that they weren't in danger. They weren't about to harm themselves in some way. That is the time to call an ambulance. If somebody looks like they're in danger, they're going to hurt themselves, they're going to do something that could cause injury or their own death, that's when you jump in. The all options are on the table. Do whatever you can. Mate of mine took his life a few years ago. I was on a cruise. I was out in the Pacific Ocean. If he had have called me and said, "Man, I'm struggling. I'm thinking about taking my life," I would have jumped off the boat at the next port. I would have flown home. I would have driven the 16 hours to get to his house, and I would have spoken to him on the phone the whole time. I would have done anything to help this guy. But the thing is, he didn't think anybody wanted to help him. I honestly don't know what was going through his mind at the last moment. I never, nobody can. It's impossible. But what I do know is that he didn't reach out to me. And what I do know is I never reached out to him. Admittedly, he lived far away. There were warning signs that you can see in retrospect, things that I perhaps should have said. But this guy felt completely and totally 100% alone. Even though he had a family that loved him, he had friends that cared for him, he was respected, but in the end, he chose to take his own life. It's interesting when we talk about these life and death situations because you don't know. I didn't know when one of my kids tried to take her life. I had no idea. When the paramedics showed up the next day, they said, "This is a suicide attempt." I laughed at them. I mocked them. "Oh, don't be stupid. There's no way that this is a thing. This is just to do with other illnesses that she has." Turns out they were spot on. I had no idea. And I talk about this for a job. I've written books about it. And I had no inkling that my little girl was struggling. The struggle since then has been finding the best way to communicate with her But the most important thing is that they understand that you are concerned, that you want to talk to them, that you are prepared to wade through their torrent of negative thoughts and symptoms and just be there, knowing that you can't fix them. That's all right. I know that my wife can't fix me, but I do know that when something happens, if I speak to her, everything is much better. The element of doom is taken out of whatever situation I'm in. I'm reassured. I'm validated. So that's what you want to do with somebody that you can see is struggling. Pull up alongside them. Ask if they're okay. Acknowledge to them that you can't do anything to fix them, but you will do anything you can to help them. You need to go to a doctor, you're nervous about it, I'll go with you. I heard a story the other day of a woman who was struggling and who had never gotten help, who now talks about her mental health lived experience. She had a friend who was very concerned about her, jumped on the phone and called doctors' surgeries around her suburb, asking if they had somebody that was good with mental illness. Called 5 or 6 different GPs until she found someone. Then she went with her friend, took her to the appointment, drove her there, did everything that she could to get her in that room with the GP to talk about the fact that she was struggling with her mental health. That's what you can do. You can be there. You can support them. You can let them know that they are important to you. The one thing that my friend didn't understand is how much he was going to hurt me by taking his own life. The fact that even today, 3 years later, the wound is still raw. I can't think about this guy without feeling sad and hurt, angry almost at myself, angry at him, angry at the fact that I didn't know stuff, that I didn't understand. That's what a person struggling with mental illness, that's struggling with suicidal ideation, cannot understand unless somebody says to them, I care about you. My brother, a veteran of the Australian Army, I said to him once when he was really struggling with his mental health, I just said, I cannot go to your funeral. I said it to my daughter. I cannot go to your funeral. I do not want to. I don't think I could go to your funeral. The implication, obviously, is if they take their own lives. Is it a threat? No, no. It's a desperate call of how much pain I would potentially be in if they left me that way, knowing that I would do anything for them. I can't fix them. Can't. I want to fix my daughter. I want to do everything and anything I can to make things better for her, but I can't. What I can do is stand beside her, support her, let her know that I love her, let her know that it's desperately important that she stay in my life, mine and my wife's. So, our first three things: friends can't fix friends. You can't, as much as you want to. Understand that it's okay to be concerned. I would rather be embarrassed. Hey man, I'm worried about your mental health. Oh no, it's okay, mate. I've just got this pressure at work and stuff like that, and you don't need to be concerned. Why would you think that I have a mental illness? I'd rather be embarrassed than say nothing. It is my goal that nobody in my personal orbit takes their own life friends, families, acquaintances. The pain of one incident, and I've known a lot of people I've lost contact with that I've found out have taken their lives later on. So I have been aware of it, but it never hurt me as personally or hit me as personally as when my friend tried to take his life, when my daughter tried to take hers. Didn't get any easier. 3 is find the best way to engage them. Do whatever you can to make sure that you can, in a safe way, discuss things with them. In America, I had a really interesting experience. There was a girl that I was at school with, and we were leaders in this school, and we did not get along. There was just a disconnect in our relationship. We were just friends. We were only ever going to be friends. Neither of us was interested romantically in the other, but we just could not connect. And I would say to her, "Let's go for a walk. Let's just go." There's a path that went right around the campus. I said, "Let's go for a walk." She would say no, but she would invite me out for dinner. And for me, that's a date. That's like, you don't ask somebody to go to dinner just because you're mates and you want to talk about stuff. The restaurant's the last place on earth that I want to talk about something. And to my amazement, Americans do that. They talk about stuff in restaurants that I just cannot believe that they're talking about. So my conclusion was that this girl was into me and I didn't want that. So I would counter with, I really don't wanna do that. Let's go for a walk." For her, going for a walk was romantic. It was a way to express feelings together. It looked like I was into her. The same, um, bewilderment that I had when somebody that you're having real personal conflict with wants to go out to dinner with you, to a restaurant, to a public place, to talk about stuff that should not be overheard by other people, stuff that is private. Her bewilderment that I wanted to go on a romantic walk. I use that as a classic example of two people trying to work towards the exact same goal, but completely misinterpreting what the objective of the other person was. How does this relate to our discussion today? I didn't understand her perspective on our conversation. We were both asking each other to do the same thing. Let's get together outside of this situation and let's just nut this out. Let's just figure out what's going wrong and let's get past it. But we couldn't do that because of our own preconceived notions. What we needed to do was to find a way to talk about why we were struggling in a way that was safe for both of us. And in the end, it became a mediator. We had to have a mediator, just somebody that was worried about both of us. You're both lovely people. Why do you not get on? What's going on? And then we laughed about the thing and then, oh, I'm not interested in you. Oh, thank God I'm not interested in you. Now what is the problem? And it turned out to be just miscommunication. You need to understand that you have a perspective. The person that you want to help has a perspective. And how do you broach that gap in a safe and healthy way? Well, only you can judge that. Like I said, it might be to get some help, it might be to call an ambulance, but you've got to find the best way to address it with them. Be kind, be caring, compassionate. Number 4, probably the most important, is to follow up. You can have the best, most deep and meaningful conversation with a person, but if you don't follow up, that conversation is dead air. It's wasted air. There's a person that I know, she went through a really messy divorce, changed her lifestyle completely, suffered a lot of rejection for that. We had a really great conversation on the phone and we really made some progress. And I felt like I'd done a lot to support her, and but I never followed up. And to this day, I still think about calling this girl, but it just seems so inappropriate now. So long has gone since the conversation. Now, to me, um, I told my wife the other day that a great friend of mine has got back in touch with me, and she said, "Oh, haven't heard from them in years." Sort of like, why would you bother? Doesn't phase me. I won't speak to people for 3, 4, 5 years, but when I see them again, we just pick up where we left off. That's the way it is with this guy. It's about understanding that a one-off conversation, while it's great between friends that know each other well, with this girl, this woman, this person, I think about her at least once a week. And I know that I could probably be a support to them. I don't know if they want it. I don't know if they want my friendship. The other thing about me is somebody's finally given me a name for what it is. It's called an influence gap. You don't understand a person, or me, I don't understand that people actually like me. I underestimate the impact that I have on people constantly. My wife is when I told her this, she was like, "Yeah, and like this is news." Um, Friends will get tired of me not contacting them and will just fall by the wayside. And a lot of that is because all of it's because I don't engage, but I don't engage because I think that people are just being nice. They don't really like me. They want to spend time with They don't want to spend time with me. They will if I force them to. It's called an influence gap. And that's something that I have to deal with all my mental illness and all that sort of stuff. But this idea of following up on somebody, yes, it takes courage to speak to somebody once, but it takes more courage to come back to that conversation, particularly if it didn't go well. Just call them up a couple of days later, mate. Just our conversation the other day, I just couldn't get it out of my head. What's going on? How are you? You doing all right? Can I do anything? Are you concerned? Do you have concerns about your own mental health? What are you doing to help yourself? Best case scenario, nobody's ever spoken to me about that. You've changed my life. I'd really like your help. Let's get something sorted. Worst case scenario, you get a little bit embarrassed because the person says, mate, I hear what you're saying. This is what's going on in my life. This is why things are a little different with me. There is a cause. It's not mental illness. I'd rather be embarrassed than to find out that I had missed signs, that I had not expressed concern when I should have. There's a lot more to this in that, and we might talk about this next week. You can't fix somebody who doesn't want to be fixed. All the care and concern in the world would make no difference or impact if a person doesn't want help. Every person that struggles with mental illness has to get to a point where they decide that they want to get better, that they want to live better, they want to learn to live with their symptoms better. If they don't, the potential is that their mental illness is going to overwhelm them. Why is the suicide rate so high? How many people out there are feeling like they have no impact, that nobody cares for them, that nobody wants them around? This is clearly an issue. I mean, the road toll was so bad that they made everybody wear seatbelts. In America, I had no idea, but the fight against seatbelts is similar to the fight that we're seeing about the guns at the moment. You're trying to take my liberties away. In Australia, people hated seatbelts, hated them. It's like when car seats came in as mandatory. It's like, what? Attitudes change, things happen differently. But you can't fix somebody who doesn't want to be fixed. Somebody doesn't acknowledge that there is a problem. You can't help them. You can try, you can stand beside them. You can try to get them to understand that there is an issue. Tell them why you're concerned. It is a massive, massive issue. And it's something that you should be congratulated for listening to this today, to start thinking about how do I reach out to somebody in my orbit that has metaphorically blown their ACL. They've blown a hammy. They're injured, but it's in their mind. How do I help them? How can I engage with them? And I congratulate you for try to get to the bottom of it. That is going to do it for me today. I do hope that you have a great week. I will speak to you next week. Check out Marriage with Mental Illness. That'll come out on Wednesday. We're on the Instagrams, we're on the Facebooks, we're on the LinkedIns, we're on just about everything. Like, share, and subscribe if you like the work. And you can also choose to support us financially by going to Patreon. All of the links are in the description below. Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to Shattered the podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.